A little bit of drizzle likely over the Northern Isles, and again some cloud will seep back inland over central parts of England. But on Saturday also, although it may start a bit misty in these central areas, that low cloud should disappear and should be gone by late morning, I'd have thought. So for most, it's a sunny Saturday. Again, a bit more cloud over northern Scotland, but generally elsewhere, lots of blue sky. Again, it'll be western areas seeing the top temperatures, 23, maybe a 24 on Saturday. Some coasts, particularly where we've got the breeze from the sea, will remain rather fresh. And it's a similar story on Sunday. Plenty of strong sunshine. UV levels will be high, as will grass pollen levels too.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners on TV, radio and online. This is GB News. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, after Eamon Holmes raised questions to me about the so-called promotion of Phillip Schofield's lover from This Morning to Loose Women, in a bombshell exclusive interview, Carol Mcgiffin becomes the first star of that show to speak publicly about Schofield's runner suddenly working on the show and ITV Daytime's toxic culture. Mcgiff is going to make her feelings known in an exclusive interview soon. Plus, as the uber-woke CEO Carolyn McCall launches an external review into what many are calling a cover-up, we confront this morning's editor Martin Frizzell, who speaks for the first time on the shocking scandal. But can the bosses seriously continue to claim plausible deniability? That's the topic of my digest next, and then I'll get the views of my superstar panel. Tonight, I'm joined by Alison Pearson, Sean Bailey and Amy Nicol. And Schofield sufferer Kerry Katona has gone viral after launching a tirade on this show about her mistreatment at ITV.
I'm very sorry. The show is fake, it's phony, and it's false.
But do you agree with Kerry that this morning is now phony, fake and false? Petronella Wyatt and Benjamin Butterworth go head-to-head in what is sure to be an unmissable clash. Also on the way, amid reports that it's curtained down on Harry and Meghan's Netflix circus, can we really trust the pair to stop trashing the monarchy? My royal masterminds, Lady Colin Campbell and Phil Dampier, give their searing takes. Then the late Princess Diana's former butler and her rock Paul Burrell offers his expert analysis in Uncancelled. As no-nonsense Dutch police break up a Just Stop Oil protest by firing water cannons, should UK coppers follow suit and start hosing those hippies down? Political firebrand Anne Widdecombe thinks so. She'll explain why in The Outsider. And why is the women's magazine Glamour showcasing a pregnant trans man on their cover?
I am a trans pregnant man and I do exist, so no matter what anyone says, I literally am living proof.
So we're going to debate if Glamour has betrayed their female readership in the media buzz. As ever, do stay tuned for tomorrow's newspaper front pages hot off the press, and I'll crown a new Greatest Britain and Union Jackass before the night is out. This is Dan Wootton Tonight. Let's go. But first, breaking tonight, I have to show you this very disturbing clip which has just broken in America this evening, where President Joe Biden has taken yet another terrible public fall, this time at a US Air Force graduation ceremony. I mean, he couldn't even get up on his own. White House Communications Director Ben LeBold has just said via Twitter that Biden was unscathed, saying he tripped on a rogue sandbag on the stage. But what's clear to me now is that this 80-year-old shouldn't be anywhere near next year's 2024 election race, let alone the White House. In fact, the humane place for America's oldest ever president is now, let's be honest, I'm sure you agree, a care home. Lots more on the way, but first, Polly Middlehurst with the news headlines.
Dan, thank you. Good evening. The top story tonight on GB News. Boris Johnson has repeated his insistence that the COVID inquiry should be able to see all of his unredacted messages in their fullest form. In his own letter to the inquiry this evening, he offered to hand over the requested material himself directly. The Cabinet Office today began legal action in a bid to challenge the inquiry's order for the release of the former Prime Minister's messages and diaries. Earlier, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said the government was confident in its position in responding to the COVID inquiry's demands. Officials, though, ignored a 4 p.m. deadline today to disclose the messages. Now, Labour has received a formal complaint over the conduct of the MP Geraint Davis. He was suspended by the party pending an investigation into reports of incredibly serious allegations of completely unacceptable behaviour. The Swansea West MP has had the whip removed while a review is carried out. Earlier, he said he didn't recognise the claims but apologised if he had inadvertently offended anyone. A man arrested following the deaths of 2 youngsters off Bournemouth Beach yesterday has been released under investigation. A 12-year-old girl from Buckinghamshire and a 17-year-old boy from Southampton both died after being pulled from the sea yesterday afternoon. A man in his 40s, who the force says was on the water at the time, had been arrested on suspicion of manslaughter. 8 others were treated for non-threatening life injuries. Police say environmental protest group Just Stop Oil will be dealt with in a speedy and robust way if they try to disrupt the FA Cup final on Saturday. The Metropolitan Police is saying around 1,200 officers from 3 forces will be deployed to the match at Wembley. Earlier on today, the England cricket team's bus was delayed on its way to Lord's by Just Stop Oil demonstrators. The cricketer, Johnny Bairstow, posted a photograph on social media showing activists and officers standing in front of the coach, preventing them from getting to the ground on time. Now, the Prince and Princess of Wales have made a surprise visit to Jordan today to attend the wedding of the country's crown prince. William and Kate are among a host of foreign royalty attending the nuptials of Prince Hussein and his Saudi Arabian bride. The celebrations are being held at the Zahran Palace. That's the same venue chosen by the Crown Prince's father, King Abdullah II. And just lastly, Jane McDonald will be Phillip Schofield's replacement for the British Soap Awards. The singer will be stepping in after Schofield quit ITV after admitting to an affair with a younger colleague. Jane, who's best known for her travel series, says it's a dream come true to be hosting the show on Saturday. You're up to date on TV, online, DAB+ radio and on the TuneIn app. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
ITV's claim that it simply didn't believe Phillip Schofield had plucked a 15-year-old teenage boy with stars in his eyes from obscurity to the set of This Morning and then began a sexual relationship with him once he'd secured a job on the show, well, they look shaky by the day. Tonight, the company's uber-woke, holier-than-thou CEO has been effectively ordered to appear in front of MPs to answer questions about the cover-up on her watch on Wednesday, the 14th of June. It will be the most hotly anticipated Media Select Committee appearance since Rupert Murdoch declared it the most humble day of his life as he fronted MPs after shutting the news of the world at the height of the phone hacking scandal. And the questions for Ms McCall get more difficult by the day. Video of a showreel produced for the runner at the heart of the scandal, starring Schofield and Holly Willoughby, and apparently paid for by ITV using the broadcaster's camera crew, graphics and set, has now emerged. And a note, we have blurred the individual's face and altered his voice to protect his identity.
He's one of the biggest names in television. Next year, he'll be celebrating 34 years, wow, on the nation's screen. That's right. This man started presenting This Morning on the occasional Friday, and he's been here for 12 years. That's a long temporary job, isn't it, Philip?
I just can't find the way out.
So we've ticked off radio.
Yeah.
We've ticked off TV. You've also done some theatre. So, Holes, what do you think?
Well, I mean, that was very good, actually. Tell you what, don't get too comfy on this sofa. If Phil spots you sitting here after that, there'll be trouble.
Thank you so much.
I'll see you in 3 years.
See you in 3 years. Wonder what we'll both be doing then.
Well, if I'm still getting away with it, I'll be a happy man.
Great. Amazing. Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Tonight, Carol Mcgiffin will become the first loose woman to go public on the scandal which saw Schofield's young runner move to that show. In a bombshell live interview with me in the next hour, she will claim another young male runner on their show had to be sacked to make way for Schofield's secret lover. That adds to the revelation that ITV's head of daytime, Emma Gormley, and This Morning editor Martin Frizzell appeared on stage at the National Television Awards next to the runner, having apparently travelled to the event, this is what I was told, on a so-called talent boat, usually reserved for the network's biggest daytime TV stars. ITV has been hiding behind carefully worded corporate statements until now. Our producer, Ben Leo, tracked down This Morning's elusive boss, Frizzell, today outside the broadcaster's White City studios. Here's what happened.
Martin, Ben from Dan Wootton Show on GB News.
Hi, Ben.
Welcome back from holiday.
I've not been on holiday.
Oh, have you not? I was reported you were away. Quick question. On what planet is it feasible that you guys never knew about Schofield's lover when he was on stage with you at the NTAs?
Can't really hear you, Ben.
Sorry, I said, on what planet is it feasible that you guys never knew about Philip's lover when he was on stage with you at the NTAs?
But a good statement that came out from Carolyn, so I'll just stick with it.
I know, but it's very corporate. I mean, I think you owe it to your viewers and the shareholders for some proper answers. Why was a production assistant on stage with you and Philip and Holly?
She made a good statement. And listen, the KC will go through all these things, and you'll find that, when it comes out, everything will be made public.
And are you telling me it never appeared strange that a runner would have a showreel made in This Morning studio?
That was a really good statement.
Can we get any other answer apart from a reference to the statement?
Not really. I'm off the clock. We've done the show.
Last question. Eamon Holmes told Dan that you oversaw a show of a culture of toxicity, and and a nasty environment whilst leading the rooster this morning. Is that true?
Ben, we love Eamon. Eamon's Eamon.
If the external investigation finds that you did know about Philip's lover, or you should have at least known, and it was gross incompetence, will you resign?
Thank you, Ben. I'd just like to carry on walking, if that's all right.
OK, thanks, Martin.
So that's this morning's editor, Martin Frizzell, confirming to our Ben Leo that the results of that investigation will be made public. We will hold them to that. But with a legal investigation still ongoing, the Select Committee of Parents demanded ITV bosses seem to want to only hide behind mealy-mouthed corporate speak about what they knew and why they covered it up for so long. I don't think that position can hold. But to respond now, my superstar panel, top Daily Telegraph columnist Alison Pearson, former London Conservative mayoral candidate Sean Bailey, and the author and broadcaster Amy Nicol. So, Alison Pearson, look, you watch that show reel, and believe me, I worked at ITV Daytime for 10 years. They don't do that for anyone. They wouldn't do that for me. I mean, that would have cost thousands and thousands of pounds. There was graphics, there was a full studio set, Holly Willoughby appeared. Don't tell me that they didn't have any idea something was going on.
Special favours for the King's toy boy, isn't it really, Dan? Before we go on to that, I just want to say, what a week for you and the show. Phillip Schofield's nemesis, amazing interviews. I particularly loved Eamon Holmes. I mean, phenomenal, wasn't he? Narcissist in chief, Phillip Schofield. What a manipulator. I went back and I watched his coming out interview with Holly, all doughy-eyed with him. A prime piece of manipulation. That guy has been playing everyone. What do we think about the ITV bosses? Well, either they knew and they colluded to shut it down because they didn't want to murder the golden goose, which he and Holly are, you know, big money for them. And we've seen a huge pattern in TV, haven't we, of covering for the talent. That's my preferred option. Or they didn't know, which would make them among the only people in all of the media who didn't know, because I'm not in TV normally, and I knew, I'd heard rumours about it. And also this very sickening thing from Phillip Schofield in that coming out interview. My wife of 27 years is proud of me. Stephanie Schofield was not proud of him. She was deeply shocked, and the ITV bosses should be ashamed of themselves.
And, of course, we've heard today reports, Sean, in the Daily Mail that Phillip Schofield's wife had no idea that this young runner was any more than a friend, which is what Phillip Schofield had always assured her.
I think for me, she was the only person who had no idea. The fact that they paid for this show reel, the fact that he was getting ferried to and fro, the fact there's pictures of him out there nights on the town, I think it's very hard for the bosses to say they didn't know anything about it. And why they shouldn't do that is because they're taking the public for fools. And when everybody's sitting at home, you're spending an awful lot of time with this young man on a regular basis. You're getting him big, special favours, yet the bosses don't know there's something wrong. When they are paying, I think they did know. And I think what's really important here is the CEO of ITV has been very sneering about people. She's got rid of people very quickly, some who did deserve to go. But why has Phillip got this bubble of protection around him? And I think ultimately, if this continues with them, it will affect Holly, because it's very hard for Holly to say she didn't know, because she spent her whole time telling us how close she was to Phillip.
But Stephanie Schofield didn't know. His own wife didn't know. I feel like it is possible that he could have deceived a lot more people. I mean, we all heard the rumours, yes, we did. But then if he looked us in the eyes and said, this isn't true, I think I would have believed him if I was his close friend.
Well, ITV believed him because that was the easy thing to do.
They didn't believe him. They covered it up. He was around too much. The difference between Holly and his wife is that his wife is at home. She's trusting him at work. Holly was seeing this young man at work. Holly was in the show reel. His bosses were paying for these cars to ferry to
and I think,
and fro.
Amy, one thing we have to clarify about that show reel is that it was filmed way before the guy ended up joining this morning when he was 19 years old. The first part of that show reel, he seemed to be about 16, 17 years old. Does that make you feel uncomfortable?
I don't have a problem with the show reel. I think the show reel could have been such an inspiring thing to get the opportunity to make and put out, and it would have really encouraged you to want to get involved in the TV industry if it was innocent, right? And that I would have loved to have had that opportunity when I was 16 to make a show reel on This Morning.
Why do you think this young man
Come on,
had
Amy, don't be
the
naive. Come on.
Do you think that the young man...
Look, the show reel in and of itself is entirely
This is my point.
Yeah, but what paid for that showreel?
No, I'm just saying, if we don't know the motivations around at that time, but I think we need to get a little bit of perspective on this whole thing. This is one show, this is one presenter, and of course, the government are absolutely loving that we're all completely obsessed with this story, because while we're talking about having an inquiry about Phillip Schofield on This Morning, we're forgetting to talk about the COVID inquiry. We're forgetting to talk about the fact that Boris Johnson isn't handing over the WhatsApp messages. He was very, very reluctant to. Very reluctant to.
Some of us haven't had this is now in the Cabinet Office. Oliver Dowden and Rishi Sunak wanting to make Boris Johnson look bad, and he said, "Sorry, guys, have my phone."
We have questions about Phillip Schofield, but I have bigger questions, like the questions that Baroness Hallett is putting to the COVID inquiry. So why are we getting swept up in this?
You've got two people, Alison Pearson and I, who have spoken relentlessly about the COVID inquiry. So I think, Amy, it is very possible to want to cover two scandals and two cover-ups, actually.
Then can we give them equal coverage? Because I don't feel like that's happening at the moment.
This is abusive behaviour. If we're talking about a young woman of 15 who had been lured in with, oh, I can get you on the telly, that's literally what's happened here. This boy has been lured in with the promise of a prime job, and it's been used.
And the point is, ITV executives at least knew enough to ask serious questions. They were told, and what they wanted to do was believe the talent. And that's the disturbing thing here. But Amy, final word.
I am no way defending what Phillip Schofield has done. I'm just a little bit concerned about the amount of media coverage that we're giving them.
Well, he was on the biggest show ever.
It's not the biggest show ever. Since when is This Morning suddenly the biggest show ever?
Thank you so much. We're going to talk about this a lot tonight, because let me tell you, you're going to want to stay tuned. There are big revelations to come in this story over the next 90 minutes. Do not move. But coming up, as it's reported, Harry and Meghan will stop making royal-bashing TV shows and toxic memoirs. Will they really be able to resist chances to attack the palace? My royal masterminds, Lady Colin Campbell and Phil Dampier, join me very soon. But next in the clash, after her emotional interview with me goes viral, is Kerry Katona right that This Morning is now phony, fake and false? Petronella Wyatt takes on Benjamin Butterworth. Oh my goodness, that's going to be good in just a moment. What do you think? Dan at gbnews.com. Vote in our poll at GBNews on Twitter. We're back after the break.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive, because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage. Here on GB News, we will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
My Royal Masterminds, Lady Colin Campbell and Phil Dampier, are coming up. But right now, the clash. On the show last night, you may have seen the reality TV star Kerry Katona and a regular on ITV Daytime, including a former guest host on This Morning and panellist on Loose Women, speaking up for the first time about her toxic experiences at the network, including that infamous interview on This Morning in 2008 and a nasty on-air chat with Phillip Schofield, which still triggers her to this day. She didn't hold back in sharing her views about the broadcaster look.
A long time I've not been able to watch ITV. It makes me cringe. I think they're full of I think they're hypocritical. I think they're condescending. I don't want to sit at home watching TV thinking, this is this is they're lying to me. We turn on TV because we want to watch stuff that we're relatable. We want realness. We want to go, oh yeah, I relate to that. Yeah, I get that. Oh, I understand that. I smell I'm very sorry. The show is fake, it's phony, and it's false.
So do you agree with Kerry? Is This Morning now phony, fake and false? Dan at gbnews.com. Vote in our poll at GB News on Twitter. But to debate this now, I am joined by two good friends of the show, the columnist and broadcaster Petronella Wyatt and Britain's wokest man, a member of our superstar panel, Benjamin Butterworth. So, Petronella, Kerry's right, isn't she? We've actually seen the phoniness and the fakery throughout this week.
Yes, I think it is phony and fake, but I have to say that it's also a symptom of our culture, because I think we're living through a great convulsion of stupidity. And ITV is one of the great examples. I mean, it's so dumbed down to the extent that you have people who are totally unqualified interviewing the Prime Minister, where once you would have had people like Robin Day. So I'm not at all surprised it's fake and it's phony, and it is. It's ghastly. It is toxic. I've had a run-in with Holly Willoughby.
What happened? Spill the tea.
Well, I wrote something humorous about her, and it turned out she had no sense of humour at all. And
is it true, Petronella? Is it true that you described Holly as the fakest and falsest person you've met in your entire life?
Yeah, that's saying something. I met a lot of fakes, but she's certainly the fakest person I met in TV. Definitely.
Benjamin Butterworth, haven't we just seen how fake and phony this show is? Because for years we brought into this idea that it was the This Morning family. Actually, what we've now learned is this is a more dysfunctional bunch than the cast of Shameless.
Look, I think this whole debate is completely preposterous. You know, television is a form of entertainment. It's not meant to be completely real. You know, lots of television is smoke and mirrors. If you go to the West End, for example, you know that people are acting. They're putting on a performance.
Yeah, but that's different. That's a drama.
I don't think that's true.
But this is a form of entertainment, just like going to the theatre, right?
It's
and
not.
The truth is that when they behave in the the way they do. It's to entertain people. And millions of people over the last 21 years, in Phillip Schofield's case, have thoroughly enjoyed This Morning. They've done some great examples of journalism. Some of their human interest work is the best on television. And that's why it's dominated daytime TV for 2 decades. And so I think this idea of people calling it fake and phony, a lot of those people are jealous of Phillip Schofield and Holly Willoughby because they beat them at national television awards.
Year to be jealous.
Please, can I say something? Because
who misled his wife for 27
I want to give an example of the fakeness and phoniness, because something terrible happened to a friend of mine and it led to his early death. This is when Schofield got out a list of alleged paedophiles in the Tory party, and it was completely unresearched, and he sprung it on David Cameron, and it was the most unprofessional
You just read it
piece.
from the internet.
Exactly, and it turned out to be complete lies. But he managed to angle it so the names were seen on TV. One of the names is the name of a very old friend of mine. And as a result of this, he was in poor health, but he died earlier than he should have done because of the stress and the angst caused by that. His daughter was pregnant, nearly had a miscarriage. I think these people are awful. They have no sense of responsibility. They have far too much power, and they're not good journalists. And I don't think television is all about entertainment, because it's there to inform as well.
I mean, Benjamin...
And they set themselves up as
I
journalists.
have to say, Benjamin, your defence that, it's just like going to watch a play in the West End is a bit ridiculous, because we're meant to believe that Holly and Phillip are actually genuine friends. They're not put across as actors. They're presenters who are meant to be real.
I mean, look, I'd say 2 things there. You know, for most people, they behave in a slightly different way when they're at work to how they might do with their mates on a Friday night.
Not me.
It's called being
You know me. You know me.
No, I disagree.
Yeah, actually, I can confirm, Dan, you're just as much of a nightmare on a Friday night as you are in the GB News studio. That's true.
Absolutely.
But, you know, take another ITV star, for example, one that I think just about everybody liked, Lorraine Kelly. She won a court case to prove that she puts on an act to be Lorraine on ITV, not the person at home. That was a really important thing that saved her a great deal of money in tax. Now,
But you're just adding to Petronella's argument about it being fake.
You're not.
I thought you were trying to say that they're not fake.
Entertainment. And the truth is, can I just say this? I think there's a real snobbery in what Petronella and you are saying. The idea that they don't do good journalism, the idea that it's dumbed down in quotes. Actually, this is about telling stories, whether they're big political stories or human interest stories, in a way that people can understand.
Well, you've just called Petronella a snob.
The Sun would get that.
Well, I do get that, but you've just called Petronella a snob, so let her respond.
No, I think that's grossly unfair. I mean, you have to agree that we have had a lot of better presenters in the past, like Robin Day, like Brian Walden, like the Dimblebys, like Joan Bakewell. I just think
But Richard Madeley's a good journalist, so is Judy.
There are good journalists, but I don't think decrying that something is being dumbed down makes you a snob. And if it does, then we need more snobs, frankly.
Benjamin, is it true that you feel there's been a bit of a witch hunt against Phillip Schofield? You actually feel sorry for the guy?
I do actually, yeah. And clearly there are things in this process that aren't right, like the fact that the allegations of ICB covering up elements of this may well be true. But when it comes to Phillip Schofield, look, there is no actual evidence that he quote-unquote groomed, which was one of the things that Kerry Katona referenced and something you'll see on social media a lot. They had a consensual relationship when he was of an appropriate legal age. And the truth is that I think it is laced with homophobia, the attacks on Phillip Schofield. The idea that an older man can have a relationship with a younger man who is an adult.
Wait, can I say something at this point?
Petronella, just before you do, I think I've got to call that out, because it's blatantly ridiculous. You're not telling me if a 61-year-old female presenter, I don't know, let's say who's someone around that age, Fiona Bruce, for example, were to pluck out of thin air a 15-year-old lad on work experience, spend lots of BBC money making a show reel, then get him a job a couple of years later, then end up in a sexual relationship with him. You don't think that would be a scandal? Come on. It's so pathetic, Benjamin. And look, you know I love you, but it's so pathetic that you always run to homophobia every single time.
I'm sorry, this is reminiscent of the nasty attacks that happened to Michael Barrymore, another person that committed no crime and yet had their career ruined.
Petronella, final word to you.
People
well, if you'll give me a final word. No, it's got
assumption.
nothing to do with homophobia, because I don't care how many affairs Phillip Schofield had, but the thing is, he was in loco parentis, in effect, in this case. There may be more to come out, but at best it was seedy and inappropriate, I think.
OK, Petronella Wyatt, Benjamin Butterworth, thank you both so much. But who do you agree with on this? Is Kerry Katona right that This Morning is now phony, fake and false? Thorpe writes, it's incredibly false, almost to the point of being unwatchable, but the happy and jolly facade has become infuriating now that we know the scandals and cover-ups going on behind the scenes. Paddy writes, yes, I fully agree, but they can't keep hiding behind the smiles. The public have become wise to them. And from Amanda, my late mum would turn off when it was fake Holly and Phil. She loved Eamon and Ruth. I have been hearing a lot of that this week, I have to be honest with you. Your verdict is now in. 85% of you agree with Kerry Katona that This Morning is now phony, fake and false. Just 15% of you think it's great. And, of course, we have Carol Mcgiffin blowing the whistle, the first loose women star to do so on the ITV daytime scandal within the next hour of the show. Do not go anywhere. Also on the way, as ordinary Brits finally lose patience, should police follow the Dutch model and use water cannons to Stop Oil protesters and get them off our street political firebrand? And Widdicombe weighs in soon. But next, amid reports Harry and Meghan will not be launching more Netflix-style TV shows and toxic memoirs, can we really trust the renegade royals to end their vendetta against the monarchy? My royal masterminds, Lady Colin Campbell and Phil Dampier, up straight after this.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is two new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat.
Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Time now for our royal masterminds, Lady Colin Campbell and Phil Dampier in the news we've all been waiting for hit the Sun's front page this morning as it claimed that Harry and Meghan will stop churning out royal bashing Netflix shows, tell-all interviews and moaning memoirs after facing an international backlash following their campaign against the monarchy, with one insider admitting that period of their life is over as there is nothing left to say. But do we honestly believe them? I mean, since skulking off to the States 3.5 years ago, the Sussexes, who are totally shameless, have relentlessly bashed their families, the media, and in Harry's case, even his own country. So it'll certainly be interesting to see how long they manage to keep those Montecito lips zipped. I mean, Lady C, this is all they've got. I'm sorry, I know it might be their intention. I know it might be the intention of their new agents, but I think there are more chances of pigs flying around the world than Harry and Meghan stopping slagging off the royal family.
Well, you know, Dan, I've been saying it ever since she appointed William Morris Endeavour, that they told her that she had to stop being so negative. Nobody wants to hear all of that nonsense. It's ruined their brand. It's, if she wishes to phoenix-like rise from the ashes of the conflagration that she and Harry created, she needs to leave all of that negativity behind. So I've been saying it ever since she appointed William Morris Endeavour, because I was told it by somebody very closely involved with the whole process. And so finally, we're hearing that they're going to leave it behind. Let's see for how long, because now that they know that negativity doesn't work, are they going to be able to come up with any positivity? I mean, is a rat ever able to perform like a brain surgeon?
I mean, Phillip Schofield, Phil Dampier, sorry, oh my goodness, I've got only one Philip on my mind tonight. Huge apologies. You don't want to be called him. Sorry. Phil Dampier. Look, I think what Lady C's saying is that they want to keep on slagging off the royal family. They've been told not to because it's not good for their credibility. However, Harry's in court next week. He's just going to continue speaking out, isn't he? Because this is one of 5 court battles that he's continuing to fight.
Tell you what, Dan, good evening. I've been called a lot of things in my time, but never Phillip Schofield. But anyway, no, I think if this story is true, I think you, me and Lady C deserve a pat on the back, don't we? Because we've been telling him to put a sock in it for years. I mean, but Matt Wilkinson's a very good reporter. He's got some very good sources. But whether this is going to last or not, as you say, I don't know. I mean, if they run out of money, and one lawyer estimated last week that these court cases might cost them $20 million, or might cost Harry $20 million, they're going to want to go back in there, aren't they? And I find, as we discussed last week, I find it very hard to believe that Meghan's not going to write a book, and any publisher who publishes her book is going to want her to talk about the royals. So let's see what happens. I mean, I will be delighted if they've left it behind, if they start to do positive things. If he concentrates on the Invictus Games and she concentrates on some charities and some positive things, I will be delighted. I'll be all for it. But as you say, we'll have to wait and see.
It feels very unlikely. Now, Lady C, historic day on Tuesday. Programming note, you'll both be with me then for a special edition of the show, Harry's Evidence, the Verdict. But is it possible, Lady C, that by going into the dock, by being cross-examined by the Mirror's lawyers, this is the first time a royal has done that since the 19th century, Harry could end up committing perjury? Because we have seen a very long history of him lying over the past 3.5 years, Lady C.
Well, yes, I mean, it is possible, But he wouldn't be the only person who's got up in a civil action and told a whole load of lies. It's almost expected. You know, I don't mean to sound cynical, but I mean, anybody who's familiar with the court process knows that practically every guilty person lies. And everybody who has an unjust axe to grind lies. And if he lies, it's going to be nothing unusual. And I'll tell you better, nothing's going to happen. Nobody's going to charge him with perjury. The newspapers will say that he's a perjurer. And what will happen? He will say, oh, the newspapers are against me. But the authorities will do nothing. Mark my words. But it will be interesting to see what he comes up with. Because he really, I mean, the Mirror Group action is actually based upon the word of a convicted criminal. So, you know, it's Mr. Burroughs, I think it's his name, Gavin Burroughs. I mean, he's a jailbird.
Oh, yeah. Totally. I mean, I don't think the case stacks up. I don't think the case stacks up in any way. But it's interesting, Phil, because I said earlier in the week, I don't think Harry's going to be treated just like any other witness. Lady C seems to be hinting at that too. Do you think it's possible there'll be celebrity justice here where Harry gets special treatment because he is a member of the royal family?
I'm not so sure. I think once you're in that witness box, there's no hiding place. I mean, I've been in a witness box myself, and it's not a very pleasant experience. And once a top lawyer gets his teeth into you, there's nowhere to hide. You know, so I think it's going to be very difficult for him if they start confronting him with various things he said. I don't know how he's going to sort of counter it. So I don't think he's going to get particularly different treatment. It's going to be fascinating next week. Absolutely fascinating.
OK, well, yes, just remember again, special edition of the show, Tuesday night, 9 p.m, Harry's Evidence, the verdict. But look, it's not just Meghan who seems to be loving podcasting these days. The Duchess of York, Sarah Ferguson, has today launched her own. This is alongside the entrepreneur Sarah Thompson. Have a listen.
I went to Croatia on Thursday and Friday, as you do. It was quite a journey, actually, going through Terminal 4. Mm-hmm. There's lots of people that day. Don't know what was going on.
Are you through the normal terminal?
Yeah, thank you. Good question.
Just checking.
Yeah, in the security line.
Okay.
Yeah.
And does everyone stop and get their cameras out?
Yeah.
Surreptitiously?
Yeah.
Or are they in your face?
No, surreptitiously. So then I go up and say, would you like a selfie? And they say
Yeah,
no.
I've seen you
No.
do that. Yeah.
No. What? I don't know what you were thinking.
Yeah.
Phil Dampier, is this the last thing the royal family needs, or is it harmless fun?
Well, first things first, Dan, I'm hearing tonight that Princess Eugenie might have gone into labour, so congratulations to the family there. She might...
Oh, wow!
Yeah, so I think it might be that she's having a baby fairly soon.
OK, so what details do you have on that, Phil?
Well, I haven't had it confirmed yet, but I think that she might well be in hospital, and obviously that would be Andy and Fergie's third grandchild, and of course the 13th great-grandchild of the late Queen. So it's good news. So congratulations to them if that's correct.
Fingers crossed if that's true, that it all goes well.
As for coming back to Fergie in her podcast, well, when she has a book out or she's liable to say anything, I think she now sees herself as the breadwinner. Very much sort of the person who's got to bring in the money, put food on the table for the family, because, Andrew's obviously in disgrace, and, she's got a podcast, she's got a tea she's trying to promote. I'm sure there'll be other projects in the offing, and, good luck to her. I don't think she would have done a lot of this while the Queen was still alive. But she probably thinks she's got nothing left to lose, and certainly as the King wanted to evict them from Royal Lodge and go and live in Frogmore Cottage, they probably think, well, let's make hay while we can.
Lady C, is there much tea actually being spilt in this podcast? I mean, is there anything that would concern King Charles?
Well, the reality, of course, is that Sarah has never actually criticised the royal family.
No, she hasn't.
She's been very careful to be very measured and very positive about all of them, including Prince Philip, who couldn't abide her. So I think in fairness to her, she does chat a lot, but she doesn't really say anything negative about the family. She doesn't give away any secrets. She's not indiscreet. She's not vicious. I mean, she's not Harry or Meghan. So if she wants to go about it and put some jam on their bread, I say good luck to her, I mean, it's also going to be very anodyne and I would imagine rather boring. But, you know, if people find it interesting and it's going to make them some money, good luck to them. I mean,
Nothing like our segments. Nothing like our segments with my Royal Masterminds, Lady Colin Campbell and Phil Dampier, which are the opposite of anodyne and boring. And I love that. Some happy news from Phil Dampier, hearing that Princess Eugenie is in labour tonight. So fingers crossed, hope that all goes well. And we will speak to you both on Tuesday. But coming up, as ITV brings in a lawyer for an investigation into Phillip Schofield's affair, should the government or Ofcom launch their own independent inquiry into an alleged cover-up at the embattled broadcaster? My superstar panel return to debate that shortly. But next, as Just Stop Oil pushes hard-working Brits over the edge with their outrageous blockades, is it time to turn water cannons on the eco-terrorists to clear our roads? Political firebrand Anne Widdecombe. She's live with me in just a moment.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference. And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat.
Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
OK, breaking tonight, I told you it was going to be a big show. Phillip Schofield is about to go public for the first time since the revelations of his affair with a young runner at ITV on This Morning went public. He has a lot to say. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be hearing from Phillip Schofield in 2 bombshell interviews after 10 o'clock. So do stand by for that. But first, it's time for Big Witty Style with former Conservative Minister Anne Widdecombe. And the incessant disruption caused by the unwashed eco-zealots of Just Stop Oil has rumbled on all week, with everyday Brits just trying to get to work beginning to lose their patience. And after reports that they delayed the England cricket team's arrival for their test match at Lord's earlier today, Widdy suggests her own no-nonsense solution to the pathetic eco-terrorists in a recent Daily Express column, writing, "Water cannon would provide a deterrent, but I have no doubt that were it ever to be deployed, the police would be on hand to offer the demonstrators cups of tea and dry clothes." But look, Anne, we've seen in the Netherlands this week, actually, water cannon is the best way to deal with these eco-terrorists. So why not? I mean, I am all for it. Why not? They are committing crimes. They need to be off the roads.
There's no good reason why not at all. And the fact is, that the Netherlands is hardly an example of a savage country. It's entirely civilised, but it sees fit to take measures to protect ordinary citizens. And I only wish our police did the same. Now, it's worth recording, as I did say in my Express column, that Boris Johnson did indeed obtain water cannon for this sort of purpose. And Theresa May, who was then the Home Secretary, overruled him and said he couldn't do it. Well, I would say he's been proved right.
I totally agree, because, Anne, the problem is, if there isn't action taken soon by our police, I have been warning now, Anne, for the past 18 months that there is going to be a serious injury, because the British public are fed up. We have had enough of these people committing eco-terrorism in the middle of our roads. And if you stand in the middle of the road, Anne, eventually you're going to get hurt.
Well, of course. And eventually you're also going to provoke ordinary citizens going about their business, sometimes urgent, sometimes wanting to get to hospital. We all remember the poor lady who'd had a stroke and who is now very severely disabled, whereas if she'd got to hospital quickly, she wouldn't be. She would probably be the best part of normal. And when that sort of thing is going on, the public will lose sympathy and eventually public frustration will boil over. And if they do take the law into their own hands, I can't condone that, but I do fully 100% understand it.
I know, well, I totally understand it. Now, Anne, look, the training of Britain's armed forces has come under serious scrutiny as leaked emails revealed that the RAF has been instructing recruiters to avoid training, quote, useless white male pilots, and the latest example of diversity delusion. So, Anne, with 31 white men now compensated by the RAF, isn't this just our armed forces being guilty of, and I'm going to say it, Anne, racism, pure and simple?
Yes, I mean, I've said for years that positive discrimination is always negative discrimination against somebody else. But I say, if you want to know where this is going to end, look no further than Parliament. For the last 20 years, Parliament has been consumed by identity politics. You must have more women, you must have more this, you must have more that, on the benches. And they've put that ahead of merit. And strict merit is all you need to decide whom you employ or whom you vote for, etc. Strict merit. Now, the RAF is more or less admitting they're not selecting on merit. They're selecting on identity. And that will mean an RAF declining in the future in exactly the same way as the standards of Parliament have declined. And everybody can see it. They can see it. And these are our armed forces. These are the people we're going to rely upon to defend us if ever, God forbid, we find ourselves at war.
I know, Anne, and the point is, useless white men actually have saved the UK time and again. And if you replaced white with any other characteristic, be it a colour, be it a religion, be it a sexuality, heads would roll. So why is it okay to call white men useless?
Well, it isn't okay, Dan. It isn't okay. And we should remember the Battle of Britain was composed entirely by white male pilots. And that is what we should remember. And we've a great deal to thank white males for. But exactly the same language used to be used in parliamentary selection. You know, they started saying, well, why have white male bankers, for example? You know, that was what they were always saying. No. You know, we must have black, female, something else. But, you know, not that. And so there is no defence to this at all. But what worries me is that this is in defence. This is in the actual selection of troops. This is not funny. This is very serious. It's all very well the RAF compensating the pilots that would be pilots that they've actually, rejected. Yes, but what about the population? We're the ones who are going to rely on the quality of the applicants and on the quality of those selected. And if it's done on something unmeritorious like identity, then, you know, we're not going to be properly defended. We probably...
Oh, no. We've lost... Oh, sorry, Woody, we just lost you very briefly there. I know, but the problem is, Anne, this is the only email that we know about. This is probably going on in all of our armed forces and all of our government organisations. And the problem is, Anne, it just has to stop. They have to learn their lesson from this, and it just has to stop.
Well, perhaps it shouldn't be little things like £5,000 worth of compensation. Perhaps it should be a very hefty penalty from government itself.
Indeed.
To say, stop doing this. We are all equal.
Indeed. Anne Whittaker, perfect stuff. Thank you so much. We will speak next week. But breaking tonight, in his first interview since he was exposed for having an affair with a young runner on This Morning, Phillip Schofield has broken his silence to say he will die sorry for bringing the greatest misery into the teenager's totally innocent life. But he has stressed he did not groom him. So we are going to show you this extraordinary revelation from Phillip Schofield in just moments' time. And I have Carol Mcgiffin, the first Loose Women star, to give her live reaction in the studio with me exclusively. Don't go anywhere, we're back.
First and foremost, I'm a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton, and breaking tonight, in his first interview since he was exposed for having an affair with a young runner on This Morning, Phillip Schofield has broken his silence, telling the Sun newspaper he will, quote, die sorry for bringing the greatest misery into the teenager's totally innocent life. But he has stressed he did not groom him. Phillip has also revealed that he no longer speaks to his ex-co-host and best friend Holly Willoughby after destroying their on-screen partnership. For ITV, meanwhile, the cover-up over Schofield is getting worse by the hour as their former star Carol Mcgiffin becomes the first loose woman to go public on the toxic affair, engulfing the broadcaster which saw Scofi's young lover moved to her show. Tonight, in an exclusive interview, Mcgiff tells all about the lad's mysterious exit from This Morning and will claim another young male runner had to be sacked from Loose Women to make way for Schofield's bit on the side. Carol Mcgiffin live with me in the studio imminently. Plus, ITV's Under Siege directors can try their best to hide behind corporate press releases, but once again, we've been pounding the streets looking for answers.
On what planet is it feasible that you guys never knew about Phillip's lover when he was on stage with you at the MTAs?
When it comes out, everything will be made public.
So, with the broadcaster commissioning an external investigation into the alleged cover-up, do we actually need an official independent probe to unravel the truth? That's the big debate next. And tonight, I'm joined by Alison Pearson, Sean Bailey and Amy Nicole. Meanwhile, as it's reported, Harry and Meghan will finally stop their treacherous tell-alls on the royal family. Have the Duke and Duchess of Delusion finally realised that prioritising grubby money over family loyalty has proven commercial suicide? One man who once knew Harry best is Paul Burrell, the former butler and close friend of his mother, Princess Diana. He's riled and ready to tell all in Uncancelled before the night is out. Plus, has women's magazine Glamour just betrayed its loyal female readership with cover star Logan Brown, who claims to be living proof that men can get pregnant?
I am a trans pregnant man and I do exist, so no matter what anyone says, I literally am living proof.
We'll have the latest chapter of the gender wars in the media buzz shortly, and which of the Britain's armed forces have come down with a bout of the woke mind virus and claimed white men are just all useless? Find out when we crown a new GB and UJ. Before the night is out, tomorrow's newspaper front pages, and there's lots of bombshells hot off the press in just a moment. First, though, the latest news with Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you. Good evening. Well, Boris Johnson has repeated his insistence that the COVID inquiry should be able to see all of his unredacted messages in their fullest form. In his own letter to the inquiry this evening, he offered to hand over the requested material himself directly. The Cabinet Office earlier on today began legal action in a bid to challenge the inquiry's order for the release of the former Prime Minister's messages and diaries. Earlier, the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, said the government was confident in its position, responding to the COVID inquiry's demand. Officials ignored a 4 p.m. deadline today to disclose the messages. Staying with politics, and Labour has received a formal complaint over the conduct of the MP Geraint Davis. He was suspended by the party pending an investigation into reports of incredibly serious allegations of completely unacceptable behaviour. The Swansea West MP has had the whip removed while a review is carried out. Earlier, he said he didn't recognise the claims but apologised if he had inadvertently offended anyone. A man arrested following the deaths of 2 youngsters off Bournemouth Beach has been released under investigation. A 12-year-old girl from Buckinghamshire and a 17-year-old boy from Southampton died after being pulled from the sea yesterday afternoon. The man in his 40s, who the force say was on the water at the time, had been arrested on suspicion of manslaughter. 8 others were treated for non-life-threatening injuries. British Airways has been fined almost £1 million by the United States government over claims it failed to pay refunds for cancelled flights. The US Transportation Department issued the punishment, saying the airline failed to provide timely refunds for flights to and from the US that were cancelled due to the COVID-19 pandemic. It said it had received more than 1,200 complaints, saying BA failed to provide the refunds since March 2020. British Airways has refuted the claims, saying it acted lawfully at all times. Here, police say environmental protest group Just Stop Oil will be dealt with in a speedy and robust manner if they try to disrupt the FA Cup final on Saturday. The Metropolitan Police says around 1,200 officers from 3 forces will be deployed at the match at Wembley. And earlier on today, the England cricket team's bus was delayed on its way to Lord's by Just Stop Oil demonstrators. Cricketer Johnny Bairstow posted a photo on social media showing activists and officers standing in front of their coach, preventing them getting to the ground on time. Now, the ITV boss, Dame Carolyn McCall, has been called to face questions from MPs about the broadcaster's approach to safeguarding and handling complaints following the television presenter Phillip Schofield's departure from ITV after admitting an affair with a much younger colleague. Dame McCall has been asked by the Culture, Media and Sport Committee to answer questions on June the 14th. Well, within the last 15 minutes, Phillip Schofield has issued an apology to everyone via the Sun newspaper, saying he definitely did not groom the young man. Full details on that coming up with Dan Wootton in just a few moments. You're up to date on TV, online, DAB Plus radio and on the TuneIn app. You're with GB News. Back now to Dan Wootton tonight.
Tomorrow's news tonight now in our media buzz, and let's kick off with very dramatic front pages. And hot off the press, as I was just telling you, and you heard there from Polly Middlehurst, breaking news on the Sun's front page. Phillip Schofield has finally broken his silence about the scandal that's just wrecked his life and left former employee ITV engulfed in scandal. He gives a defence of his affair with the young male colleague from this morning. We're going to see what he had to say in mere moments. See you in court leads the Metro as the government takes its own COVID inquiry to court over Boris Johnson's pandemic WhatsApps. The Cabinet Office has so far refused to share them with the inquiry and is seeking a judicial review into the matter, raising speculation that they, not Boris, have something to hide about their COVID communications. What are you worried about, Rishi? My superstar panel return now. Top Daily Telegraph columnist Alison Pearson, former Conservative London mayoral candidate Sean Bailey and the author and broadcaster Amy Nicol. And breaking tonight, as you just saw, Phillip Schofield has finally broken his silence about the affair with a young male colleague, telling the Sun newspaper tonight, "I am not a groomer." The shamed former This Morning presenter told the newspaper in an exclusive interview, "I know the photos of us circulation on Twitter look shocking, but I am not a groomer. I absolutely know there is no question I did a bad thing. I was unprofessional one time in a 41-year career. I did a bad thing. I will die sorry. I've brought the greatest misery into his totally innocent life. I just want to do everything I possibly can to say it's my fault. I know I did that and there is no excuse. I don't have an excuse. I won't put forward an excuse. No one did anything wrong apart from me." And now we can actually see Schofield, who says that he is in a very bad way, explaining himself on video.
We became mates. And then one day, something happened that just changed it.
There were accusations that you groomed him. I'm just going to let you answer the question.
I did not. I did not. Yeah. There is no question I did a bad thing. Unprofessional. First time. I know I did that. Yeah. The last time we had a conversation was when I texted Holly and said, "Don't reply." This is after the statement last week. "Don't reply. You're probably not allowed to. But I am deeply, deeply sorry that I lied to you."
Schofield went on to say he no longer speaks to Holly Willoughby, but is still friends with the young male colleague he once romanced. Now, Carol Mcgiffin will shortly become the first loose woman to go public on the Schofield scandal, joining me live in the studio to dissect that sensational interview and reveal new explosive details about the affair. But first, Alison Pearson, goodness gracious me. How do we feel about this?
I think I watch him there and I think he's a very skillful actor. We saw that in the coming out video, the careful pauses, the poor me, I did a very bad thing, but don't get me wrong, I'm not a groomer. I don't really see, Dan, how he's not an alleged groomer. We've got him saying, I saw the link with the drama school photo all those years before, and I thought, this looks shocking. Yeah, it looked shocking because it was shocking, because Phillip Schofield's friend was running a drama school at which this boy, as a young teenager, was a student who then ended up as a runner on this morning. What's the link there? I think he's got a lot of explaining to do, and I think if it emerges, A, that there was grooming, and B, that there was any payment made to this boy, then I think Carolyn McCall has to go as Chief Executive of ITV.
Amy Nicole, I've just been having a look at this interview, this sit-down with the assistant editor of The Sun, Clemmy Moody, and she paints a picture of a broken man. Phillip Schofield himself says that he hasn't been eating, he's only been drinking Southern Comfort over the past few days. Do you feel sympathy for him?
Do you know what? I just am feeling like this is all a very, very dramatic way of trying to push away the suggestion that anything illegal has gone on, not that it has. But I'm not sure if desperate men relying solely on Southern Comfort want to be in an on-camera interview. Even I, as someone who always feels sorry for absolutely everyone, I'm just struggling.
Well, Sean Bailey, for me...
The furious vaping as well.
For me... Phillip Schofield is a career man. He's always been a career man, and I think he knows that he has to come out and front this. This is not a man who has given up on relaunching a showbiz career. Remember, he has a divorce to pay for. That is going to be a very expensive divorce. So I think he is trying to say very quickly, I'm going to get out in front of this, I'm going to talk publicly, and I'm going to see if I can change the mood of the nation. Will he be successful?
No, is the short answer, and the long answer to that. But I think he's doing something else. I think he's doing something different. I think he's trying to protect his friends at ITV.
Yes.
Because whatever happens, there's a duty of care for ITV, and they clearly failed in that. And the prevalence of this boy, again, the showreel, the attending shows where no other person at his rank has ever been, would suggest that very important executives knew something was going on and aided and abetted in that. That's the problem. And I think they've said to him, whatever happens, Phillip, you're going, but you can do us a favour. So if you're correct and he wants to have a future, they've probably pretended they can give him one, so he's taken one for the team, as it were. I think, actually, ITV now need to look at themselves, because what they've done, no matter what happens, they've exposed Holly to huge amounts of danger. She may well have known. I think it's going to be quite hard for her to deny that she knew, but it doesn't matter now because everybody's been dragged into it because they were part of maintaining the Phillip Schofield bandwagon. You know, he's been alleged he was very horrible to people. This affair is certainly true. And if you add that video to the video when he came out, you can see the acting. I think there's a little less regret.
He has the audacity to say it never came across that way as an abuse of power. We became mates. Like, it's completely... Well, you know, I'm a 61-year-old man. I just became mates with a 15-year-old boy.
I think Sean Bailey has a really good point, actually. His ITV mates, Holly, the executives, they pretty much covered up for him. And so now he is trying to do them a favour by taking all of the blame and trying to say, you have no questions to answer.
Yeah, I think that's right. As Sean says, take one for the team. But if you think about this, Dan, we've all worked in different places. In my workplace, if you brought your teenage lover onto the premises and gave them a free run and promoted them, and Carol's going to tell us later, but kicked off another member of staff and gave that job to your boyfriend, you wouldn't last long, would you?
No.
You know, and your managing editor would be in huge trouble if they had permitted that conduct to go on, which brings us back to Carolyn McCall. If they knew he was doing this, if they were giving him free run of the playpen, Eamon Holmes used the term playtime.
Yes, Thursday night playtime.
Thursday night playtime with a very young boy.
Yeah, and he's trying to be quite slippery when it comes to the ITV cars. He's getting around that by saying, oh, I didn't pay for any cars for anyone. That's not the point. The point is the young runner was getting the cars paid for from the ITV account from Phillip's address. So, again, he's done what I call a non-denial denial. He's sort of denied something that no one was actually accusing him of.
It reminds me a bit, I mean, obviously it was more serious in the Harvey Weinstein case, but I witnessed that close up, going into the Weinstein offices and seeing people who basically were dancing attendance on this giant ego, you know.
But maybe that giant ego really thinks that he could be back hosting the Soap Awards next week.
Well, I think he certainly maybe doesn't think he'll be hosting the Soap Awards next week. I think he thinks he will be hosting programmes within the years to come. Amy Nicole, Sean Bailey, Alison Pearson, do stand by because we've got more breaking news on the story. Phillip Schofield has also given an interview to the BBC that is going to broadcast tomorrow night, the public service broadcaster. But we do have our hands of one clip from that interview with Amal Rajan making his defence, which I'm going to be showing you in mere moments. But next, she's the first loose women star to speak out about the alleged cover-up at ITV Daytime. Carol Mcgiffin joins me exclusively to reveal the inner workings of the channel that saw Schofield's young runner move to her show after this morning. Carol Mcgiffin, live in the studio on this breaking news in just a moment.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is two new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Breaking tonight, Phillip Schofield has broken his silence on the cover-up at ITV in 2 extraordinary interviews. Stand by. We're going to play you what he says. But in a letter released yesterday, ITV's Uber Woke's chief executive Carolyn McCall insisted his younger lover left this morning in 2019 after, quote, securing a promotion to Loose Women. However, this week, ITV insiders, including Eamon Holmes, have cast serious doubt over that version of events. Around the same time the runner made the unprecedented move in 2018, Loose Women legend Carol Mcgiffin returned to the famous panel show and knows firsthand what it was like to suddenly have Schofield's lover on set. And I'm delighted that Mcgiff joins me now, becoming the first Loose Women to speak out about the growing cover-up at ITV. So, Carol, look, we're going to talk about this extraordinary interview with Phillip Schofield in just a moment. But I think the first thing that is really important to ask you about is the fact that this runner was put on your show, Loose Women, and is it true that they actually had to sack another young male runner in order to give him the job?
Whether they had to or not, I don't know, but they did. And everybody was really quite upset about it because, you know, everybody loved him and he was a great runner. But I think he was actually a runner. But then one day, I mean, I wasn't there a lot of the time. I used to get all my information from everybody else. One day I got a text message and it was from the young man in question and he said, I'm the new production secretary at Loose Women. I thought, hang on a minute, what's happened here? I didn't even know that Mitch had gone at the time.
So Mitch was the previous runner, and I remember him. He was a great guy.
He was a great
Everyone
boy,
loved him.
yeah.
And for some reason he goes.
He
and in
disappeared.
comes this new runner.
Yeah.
Who, it was rumoured, was having a relationship with Phillip Schofield.
Yes, which I didn't know at the time, but then gradually, as he'd been there for a little bit of time, it was quite obvious. As Eamon said the other night, he was a bit troubled. He was quite troubled. And some of the other Loose Women, I'm pretty sure, kind of sensed that, you know, probably had a little bit of parental power and sensed that he was in a bit of a bad way and kind of, you know, not coached him, but tried to comfort him. And I think that he began to open up to some of them. And this was the first time that I found this out. I didn't know anything about it before that. I've not ever been part of This Morning. I was only ever part of Loose Women, and only from 2018 as well. So, and he turned up in, I think, quite early 2019. And I thought, well, I knew there was something wrong. Everybody knew there was something wrong. And when people around ITV say, oh, we didn't know anything about it, you did. Everybody did. I mean, everybody knew. And you can still say it's a rumour because no one's actually confirmed it. Well, Phillip has confirmed it now and is now coming across as though he's protesting too much, like I'm innocent. I'm not innocent, I'm the guilty party. And as Sean just said, actually, and I said this earlier, I wouldn't be surprised if they'd all got together and said, right, you take the hit, Phillip, and he's covering everybody else because I'm absolutely convinced they covered all that up and they knew exactly what was going on because the way it was engineered, you knew there was something going on straight away.
Now, Carol, I spoke to numerous Loose Women at the time who told me off the record they were very angry to be put in the position of having to work with Phillip Schofield's young lover because they felt that it put them in an unfair position because he was going through a lot at the time. There were a lot of issues, won't go into what the issues were, but there were issues with this guy and they thought it was highly unfair that they were almost having to deal with Phillip Schofield's mess. Did you feel that at all?
Well, I didn't because I wasn't there enough, but and also I'm not, you know me, I'm not very sensitive to people. Yeah, I just think, oh, you know, if someone's got a problem, it's not mine, which is a little bit selfish, I know. But there are very sort of empathetic people working on Loose Women, and they did kind of take him under their wing, and it it wasn't right that they had to do that, because I think it was Eamon who said the other night that he was just literally hoisted upon another show and called it a promotion. So, yeah, his title did change. It was production secretary rather than runner, as it was before.
But he was doing exactly the same job.
Yeah.
It wasn't actually a promotion, was it? They engineered a job move.
I think he was doing... Because apparently it was reported that he was Philip's PA as well as the runner. And this is how, you know, they became so close. So he was kind of, you know, booking travel and doing other things.
But then he disappears one day, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, as far as I know, one day there was somebody new in the job, and I'm like, well, like, you know, changing every 5 minutes. And someone just said to me, well, the young man who was Philip's lover went up to Manchester to work for ITV. So I'm thinking, well, there was no real notice of that. There wasn't like, oh, I'm leaving, I'm going to Manchester, or I don't know, maybe I just missed it. But it was kind of strange that then suddenly he disappeared and he'd gone up to Manchester, and I don't think many people heard from him since. And there were some people on Loose Women, some women who were really worried about him, actually.
Yeah, they were.
And he was in a bad way. I saw him out a few times, and you could just tell that he was probably having a bit of a breakdown at the time.
No,
So
absolutely, and there were a lot of the women who were worried about them. Some of them stayed in touch. Some of them tried to help them find work and that sort of thing. But that's where the anger came from, because they thought this was a mess created by Phillip Schofield, and it was unfair that it was
they were having to
forced
deal
upon
with
the show.
it.
And the other point is, Carol, and I think this is where the cover-up comes in. There's no way that this guy could have moved from This Morning to Loose Women without the go-ahead from a senior executive, the head of daytime at ITV, because the editors of the individual shows can't just move a staff member. That's not how it works. There has to be approval from higher up, doesn't there?
absolutely there does. And the bosses are like, you know, you wouldn't just take on a member of staff from another production if you didn't want them. You'd be thinking that you would have to get someone because there was nothing wrong with the guy who was doing the job before. So, of course, there had to be some shenanigans going on above everybody else who was working on the show, above the production team, and nobody really knew, and nobody was really saying. It's just like, well, you know, he's been promoted from This Morning, so obviously, my beef is with the management, really.
Yeah.
Because
me too.
Because if Philip is covering for them now, and I'm pretty certain that he's trying to take the fall for them all. The way I see it, they're so arrogant. Most TV bosses are the same. They're really arrogant. They think they're invincible, and they just think, right, oh, let's just carry on, move along, put Holly back on the show. Let's just, you know, get back to normal, and everything will be all right. Yeah. Philip's apologised, and it's all going to be OK. But it's not going to be OK.
No,
it's
and that
not
was
enough.
the extraordinary thing. We all knew it wasn't going to be OK. We all knew this would happen one day. Look, you talk about what Schofield is saying. Why don't we have a little look at what he has told?
Because I haven't seen it yet.
The Sun newspaper, and you can react off the back.
We became mates. And then one day, something happened that just changed it.
There were accusations that you groomed him. I'm just going to let you answer the question.
I did not. There is no question I did a bad thing.
Do you buy that, Carol?
Well, there is no question he did a bad thing. He did obviously mess with this young man's life, but I don't know. You know, what the official definition of grooming. It is a bit weird that he knew this guy from a very, very young age when he was at the drama school, and then suddenly he's like, you know, mentoring him, nurturing him, and
the show reel, making the show
reel, exactly, getting him a job, and then suddenly, oh, they're having an affair. So it certainly looks like that. But whether or not you know, whether or not he officially did, it is classic grooming behaviour, isn't it? And, you know, I don't care how many times he says sorry. It's like if he keeps saying sorry, then everything's going to be OK. But as we know, it's not going to be.
Now, look, Carol, I also want to show you what Eamon Holmes had to say about ITV promoting the runner to Loose Women and also about Phillip Schofield's relationship with all of the Loose Women. Have a look at this, Carol.
I think that should be asked why that unprecedented move was authorised, who authorised it and why they authorised it. As for the Loose Women, in the year that you're talking about, the panel that existed, I would say there was probably a minority of one who actually liked Phillip Schofield. One Loose Woman of 10 or 12 or whatever.
Was he talking about you there, Carol?
No.
Who does he mean?
I've no idea. I don't know anybody who's actually ever said out loud that they really like Phillip.
Yeah.
And actually, the truth is, on Loose Women, we have to do this handover. I'm not there anymore, obviously, but they have to do a handover to this morning. There's 2 links into the show. And when Phillip was doing the show, it was really uncomfortable because you could just tell he was just so dismissive and just so not interested in the programme.
The moment that he did this to Ruth Langsford and she made a formal complaint. So why don't we just take a look at this and then you can explain what went on after.
And Emmerdale Twisted teacher Maya, that's actress Louisa Klein, will be here talking about.
Guys, we're going to have to jump in there and stop you, I'm afraid, because we're a bit tight for time at this end. So thank you, Ruth, and we'll catch you guys a little bit later. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it was like that quite a lot. Whenever Dermot and Alison or anybody else were doing the show, they would react to what you were saying in our little promo. But when it was Phil, it was just like. You sit there thinking, why do we bother? Because it's just like, right, yep, and then just carrying on. So, yeah, I don't think he was liked by any of the Loose Women. I've never heard anybody there say that they actually like him. And no one really ever had a good word for him, obviously.
Carol Mcgiffin, well, do stand by, because we're going to have lots more from you later. But in a statement, ITV's Chief Executive Carolyn McCall says when rumours of a relationship between Schofield and an employee of ITV first began to circulate in late 2019, early 2020, ITV investigated and did not find any evidence of a relationship beyond hearsay and rumour. Phillip made assurances to us and his agency, which he now acknowledges were untrue, and we feel badly let down. Now, coming up in Uncancelled, amid reports that it's curtains down on Harry and Meghan's Netflix circus, can we really trust the pair to stop trashing the monarchy? The late Princess Diana's former butler and her rock, Paul Burrell, is going to offer his exclusive insight shortly. But next, and in another development to this breaking news story tonight, Phillip Schofield has given a second interview to the BBC. It's going to broadcast tomorrow night. But we're going to have a preview of what he has to say to Amal Rajan about being exposed for having an affair with a much younger colleague. He describes it as consensual, but a grave error. So see what Phillip Schofield has to say in his second interview of the night in mere moments. Don't go anywhere.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference. And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat.
Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
And let's return to tomorrow's news tonight. In our Media Buzz, and more front pages are in. The Eye leads with government heading for court showdown after refusing to hand over uncensored messages between Boris Johnson and 40 ministers, officials, aides and scientific advisers. The Daily Mail leads with ministers refusing to give Boris Johnson's WhatsApp messages to the inquiry. Baroness Hallett has ordered the government to hand over the exchanges to her inquiry. Meanwhile, Phillip Schofield's wife, Steph, said to be furious about his lies regarding his This Morning lover. That is according to family friends. Now, let me bring back tonight's superstar panel alongside our special guest, the former Loose Women star, Carol Mcgiffin. Oh, but that's Daily Telegraph columnist Alison Pearson. We've also got Sean Bailey in the house, former Conservative London mayoral candidate, the author and broadcaster Amy Cullen. There is Carol. I just got too excited. But breaking tonight, Phillip Schofield has finally broken his silence on the sordid affair that saw his world collapse and engulf former employer ITV in the process. The Shame presenter has given an interview to the Sun newspaper and a sit-down with the BBC. This is a preview.
You met someone who was a child, you were in a position of power over them, you used your power eventually to give them something they craved, which was a shot at a job in the media, you nurtured a relationship and then that relationship became sexual. And they might ask, what's the difference between that and grooming?
Well, I would say that the initial list of things was not right anyway.
Tell me, why?
Because it was a totally innocent picture, a totally innocent Twitter follow, of which I follow 11,400 people, and then it was a completely innocent backwards and forwards over a period of time about a job, about careers. You know, I mean, you do that. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with talking to someone, no matter, you know, what age they are? Does that mean that if you're following anyone on Twitter that you absolutely don't talk to anybody else or you don't give advice? So I disagree with the summation that you just gave, because that does paint a very grave picture.
In which case, why do you say it was unwise? Because you're clearly sensitive to the power differential and you're clearly mindful of the dangers of abuse of power.
The brief communications backwards and forwards up to the point that he came to work on this morning, I think was just chat. What was unwise was the fact that it happened. And that was a very, very grave error. Now, it was consensual, but it was my fault.
Carol Mcgiffin, your reaction?
It looks very engineered to me, all of this, and I think it is to take the heat off the bosses. I know they've said they're going to do an inquiry, a barrister-led inquiry, but I just think that'll be another cover-up to cover up the cover-up. It's all kind of too. He seems to be too remorseful, if you know what I mean. And he doesn't look broken at all. He actually looks really well, and he doesn't look like he's not been eating. I just can't believe anything he says. But you know, it's working. Everybody's getting really angry and annoyed with Philip, rather than the people who are responsible for covering this thing up. And
which is what this story is about.
Exactly.
It's about the cover-up. Alison Pearson, do you buy his argument?
I think really good question from Amal Raj, and how was that not grooming? And he didn't really have a convincing reply to that. I think Phillip Schofield perhaps heading for Best Actor, Best in a Soap in the 2024 awards, which he won't be presenting, Dan.
Sean Bailey?
I'll go back to Carol's point. I think Phillip is providing cover for everybody else, and we're all getting angry at Phillip with good reason, but actually his bosses seem to have known an awful lot, and a certain version of events look like they happen to facilitate some of this. And it's very strange now. We're effectively relying on members of Parliament to get to the bottom of this. I actually don't think they should be involved, but the fact that they are, let's hope they do something good. Because an inquiry on ITV, led by ITV, I don't think will be convincing to anyone. So we need these parliamentarians to really push for some decent answers.
Amy Nicole, you worked in the showbiz industry for a long time. What's the strategy behind doing these interviews with The Sun and the BBC?
I think whoever has given him this strategy was potentially also the strategist for Prince Andrew, because if that interview gave me anything, it gave me, I was in Pizza Express in Woking, I don't know anything about it, and I can't sweat.
This could backfire.
I think it has backfired, surely, already. That is so Newsnight, Prince Andrew vibes. Do you not agree? For once.
Obviously, I think I need to see the full thing in context, but what I definitely agree with Carol on is that this is all spin, that he's a broken man.
Spin.
You know, because
Terrible
if you're a broken
spin.
man, you can't dust yourself off a couple of days after this to go and sit down for 2 interviews. For me, Carol, this is about reviving his career. But, Carol, look, you were very recently at ITV Daytime. You've only just left Loose Women in the past few weeks. What do you actually think has to happen at your former employer? Does there have to be a clear out in management now? Where does this story go?
I think that, genuinely, I think this morning the show can't go on. I think it's way too tainted and
You think
damaged.
it has to be axed?
Well, not axed exactly, rested maybe, and revamped and to come back with, because you can't just go along with everything. And the timing of Phil's interviews now is like, Holly's supposed to be back next week. So it's like, oh, this is all just going to brush it all under the carpet, and then Carolyn McCall will talk to the MPs, nothing will happen about that, and then the barrister-led thing. It's all kind of, it's tokenistic, all of it. And I really don't think that this morning should carry on. I don't think Holly should go back, because she must have known. She must have known. Nobody knows whether she actually knew or not, but everybody's just saying, oh, Philip lied to me, Philip lied to me. Come on, you were so close. It's ridiculous. And I just think that this shows the arrogance of the bosses again, because they're so arrogant that they think the public are stupid. They really think the public are stupid. They don't know their audience. They don't know what they want. And, for years they've given Holly and Phil every single job going, and people, they're not that popular. And they're really not. And now to just carry on and think they can just carry on with This Morning. This Morning is an institution. It is a legendary programme. And I think that its creator, Diane Nelms, said this the other day, that it needs to be rested. It's tired and it's kind of finished. They need to put something else on. And the whole of Daytime needs a revamp, if you ask me. And the head of Daytime needs to be looked at, and also Carolyn McCall. Both of them need to be looked at very carefully indeed.
Absolutely agree. Carol Mcgiffin, Alison Pearson, Sean Bailey, Amy Nicole, thank you so much reacting to this breaking news of 2 bombshell interviews in one night from Phillip Schofield, insisting that he did not groom the young runner. Now, the popular women's magazine Glamour has caused outrage after publishing a front cover of a pregnant trans man as part of its June Pride celebration. The magazine markets itself as providing beauty, style and empowerment content for women, but stunned readers after a self-identifying man called Logan Brown showed off their baby bump. And Brown, who has partnered up with a non-binary drag performer called Bailey J. Mills, also explains in an accompanying video with Glamour how they became pregnant after slowing down their testosterone intake. Look.
I am a trans pregnant man and I do exist, so no matter what anyone says, I literally am living proof. So I just kind of had this really weird feeling, and I took the pregnancy test and it was just like this. It was like my whole world just stopped. And yeah, it was literally when I saw them 2 lines, I was just like, what the heck? All my manlyhood that I've tried to work hard for so long just completely felt like it was erased. It was really hard because how do you tell your partner, like, oh, I'm pregnant, but oh, I'm also your boyfriend as well.
Whoever birthed that brain fade at Glamour should probably be looking for another job, because I have a feeling a lot of their women readers are going to be very angry about that. Now, coming up, with Jane McDonald announced as the new presenter of the British Soap Awards, and disgraced Phillip Schofield breaking his silence amid growing accusations of a cover-up. Can ITV cope with this major storm? My superstar panel return to crown tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass very soon. But next, in Uncancelled, amid reports that it's curtained down on Harry and Meghan's Netflix circus, can we really trust the pair to stop trashing the monarchy? The late Princess Diana's former butler and her rock, Paul Burrell, offers his expert insight in just 2 minutes' time.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people's channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The people's channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
It's time now for Uncancelled. And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. And that very same cancel culture seems to be hitting Montecito too, as The Sun claims that millionaire moaners Harry and Meghan are to stop boring the world with their royal bashing Netflix shows, tell-all interviews and meddling memoirs after facing a backlash against their attacks on the British monarchy, with one insider revealing that period of their life is over as there is nothing left to say. Paul Burrell, Diana's rock. Let me bring you in on this, Paul. Can we really trust what Harry and Meghan are saying here? Because I know they might like to think that they're going to stop trashing the royal family, but Harry's in court on Tuesday and he's probably going to do exactly that.
Dan, I don't believe for a second that the war with the royal family is over. Without royal news and gossip, without that oxygen, Meghan and Harry won't survive because their USP is being royal. And without that, their brand will wither and die. And I just want to wait and see what's going to happen because, as you said, Harry's going to be in court. He's going to be, once again, slamming the royal family and telling tales about his father and his brother and Kate. That is what he does, and that's what this couple does. She is a very calculating, manipulative woman who has got Harry in her clutches, and she knows that this is worth millions to her. I don't believe that they will ever stay quiet. I believe they will continue on the same path. If they go behind the scenes, what could they possibly do behind the scenes?
Indeed, because isn't that the point, Paul? The only reason they get paid the big money from Netflix and Spotify is to trash the royal family. So I think this might be the high-minded new aim of Meghan's new agent, who are trying to distance herself from everything she's done.
Yes.
Exactly, but it's not going to work, is it?
No, it's not going to work. They're trying to put a new face on an old situation, but they will revert to what they've always done. And believe me, they will never stop being royal on the other side of the Atlantic and slinging arrows at their family on this side of the Atlantic. In complete contrast, of course, there's Kate and William doing exactly what's expected of them. They are doing what the public want them to do, and they are being raised high. I hope that the king sees this and rewards Kate this summer with the highest order in the land for chivalry, the Order of the Garter. I hope in this coronation year she's raised high because she is our future queen and he is our future king. And we should support William and Kate, not Meghan and Harry.
Indeed, thank you so much. But of course, a big royal day on Tuesday. Harry's evidence, the verdict. We will speak to you then, Paul Burrell.
Yes.
But it's time now to reveal tonight's greatest Briton and Union jackass. Alison Pearson, who's your nominee for GB?
My nominee is John Chappell. John was unable during lockdown to get treatment for incipient cancer. By the time he got treatment, he had tragically grade 4 incurable cancer, and he is raising a huge amount of money on his GoFundMe page. He's a fantastic guy, and he's been left to die in a corner, as he describes it, by our NHS.
Absolutely.
Go for it, John.
Breaking, yeah, great guy and a great cause that you have championed. Sean Bailey, your nominee.
My nominee is Mothers Against Muggers, a group in Richmond that patrol the streets to keep their children and other children safe after school. Of course, they've had to do this because of Sadiq Khan's utter failure to keep the streets of London safe.
And Amy Nicol, your nominee.
So I've gone for Jane MacDonald, who has stepped in to replace Phillip Schofield. And actually, I think she could step in and host This Morning.
She will do such a better job. She would be great on This Morning too. Well, look, I have to say, while there are some brilliant nominees there tonight, it's important for me, and I don't usually do this, to choose a different greatest Briton, because you might not know the name Tom Barton. But if you're a supporter of this show and GB News since our launch in 2021, then you should be as grateful for him as I am. So Tom actually launched the show with me. There we were, in the most difficult circumstances, under the most intense pressure. Actually, we still find it stressful to talk about, even today. Then he became my executive producer, and absolute rock these past 2 years, as the entire establishment predicted GB News would fail, when in fact we thrived. And indeed, Tom very sadly leaves us after tonight, with this show achieving record ratings as the #1 programme on any news channel between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m, beating the British Bashing Corporation and Sly News. So to achieve that, Tom has made huge personal sacrifices given the time of night that we are on air. And so I thank him and hand him back now to his lovely wife and daughter. So, Tom, thank you so much. From me, the whole team, our superstar panels, our regulars, we are really, really going to miss you.
And I miss you so much.
But it is time now to reveal our Union jackass, Alison Pearson.
my Union Jackass.
Yes, who's yours?
RAF recruiters who have, in their pursuit of diversity, have branded useless white male pilots, insulting the astonishing men who have given their lives for this country in the RAF. Absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, useless white men. Goodness gracious me, sums up the woke mind virus, I think. Sean Bailey, your nominee for Union Jackass.
My Union Jackass nominee is the ASLEF Union, who are planning yet more strikes. Train drivers are some of the best paid public servants with an average of £60,000, generous overtime and gold-plated pensions. And instead of driving us around the country in trains, they're planning more and more strikes. Shame on them.
And Amy Nicol, your Union Jackass nominee.
Well, I've gone for the Conservative Party.
Oh, there's a surprise. Goodness me, Amy. Wow, you shock me.
I agree.
Knocked
What
me
on
down
earth
with a
have they
feather.
done this time? Add it to the list. So this week, they've said that they won't be revealing the results of the care homes section of the COVID inquiry until after the general election.
OK. Well, look, I am actually going to go with Sean Bailey here and the ASLEF Union, because what is so disgusting, actually, about what these unions are doing at the moment is that they are grinding the country to a halt. They are ruining brilliant commercial enterprises. They're actually ruining a lot of fun for good, honest people who want to get around the country. I'm fed up with it. I'm glad they're not getting the getting the coverage they desire. But this has to stop. It really has to stop. So shame on the ASLEF Union. Thank you so much to my wonderful superstar panel, Alison Pearson, Sean Bailey and Amy Nicol. Thank you very much for your company all week. Let me tell you about two big shows we have at the start of next week. Monday night, we will be analysing the latest in the ITV scandal, including Holly Willoughby's return to This Morning. Then Tuesday night, Harry's Evidence, The Verdict, a special edition of the show. Have a very good weekend. Next up, it's Headliners. Good night.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nah, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.